Organised here. But we are now officially live, mate. G'day, how are you?
I'm superb. Well, superb's it's been a long and complex week or five. But I'm well.
Now you're back. When did you get back from gallivanting around the country? I know it was a few months ago
So
now.
that was a few months ago. We went up to Noosa over Christmas and managed to have a car break down so badly it needed a new engine.
Wow.
And then when we got back, my favorite ARM Surface laptop, my daily driver, also needed a new engine. So this morning I've been all the way down to Auburn and all the way back to the Northern Beaches, replacing laptops, and it still hasn't finished building. So I'm on another laptop. But there you go.
It,
It's these
it,
things.
in what world is it still viable to replace an engine in a car? I just thought it would have been done and dusted with.
It's what you think. Well, the car's worth like 25-30K. The engine was 15. You
Yeah.
go, yeah, if it fixes it, that kind of works mathematically. But now it's started going wrong again. So I think we'll get it fixed and sell it as soon as possible. But there you go. It's a
Oh, awesome, mate. Hey, well, just acknowledge Lyndon did join live, and I think is on the call. So thank you, Lyndon, for joining on, mate. Feel free to join in the conversation at any point in time via the chat, or if you just want to come off camera or come on camera, you're welcome to do that as well. Hey, but tell me, when you went to Noosa, just before we get into today's topic, where did you go? Did you just around Noosa?
so
Did you go up to Fraser? What was the trip like?
no, just around Noosa, we took the kids came in and out over Christmas. We had a big 3-bedroom apartment on Hastings Street and just hung out and did pool and beach and family time. So had some friends up there as well.
Oh, awesome, mate. Well, congratulations. We made it up north to the same area. I think it was around August to escape the end of winter, and it was just fantastic. Hey, but Nick, as we kick in today's conversation, some people, I mean, you're quite infamous, if you like, in the industry here locally and regionally. Some people may know Nick, the architect. Some people may know Nick, the author. Some people might even know Nick, the councilman. Tell us a little bit about what Nick Beaujard is up to these days.
What I'm up to these days. So these days I'm back running a what is at the moment a boutique software development business.
Okay.
It's a fascinating little business. We've got myself, an intern, another person, and 40 AI agents running software for people. And we've done some good partnerships. We write software for companies in the UK, the US, Australia, New Zealand, and that's a really fun business to run. I'm really enjoying that. So that's my day job. My part-time job is I got elected last September onto council in the Northern Beaches, a local government politician. So I sit in a team of 15 people, and we're the governance board for the Northern Beaches Council. And to give you an idea, Northern Beaches Council's got about $6.5 billion worth of assets.
Wow.
It's got about 1,800 people work for us. And so if you're looking at from a size point of view, if we're on the ASX, which we're not because we're government, we'd be roughly the same size as Woolworths. So
Wow.
that's a fascinating role doing governance because it's not just you're joining a board and you're doing board things. It's politics. So you're answerable to the community. You've got elections and boards and factions and all sorts of stuff going on. It's fascinating.
What is it like at that level? We'll get on to the exciting stuff at Agentic AI. I want to hear more about these 14 agents and some of the work that you've been up to. I think you've been writing a new book. I think I said you're doing a lot of automation stuff that you're up to.
Couple of books already this year, so already on top of that.
Okay, we'll dive into those as well. But before we do, we have to hear a little bit more about this politics. What's it like? What's it, the factions, and what's it like being a councilman? And what is quite a large, affluent council in Australia?
Well, certainly councils aren't affluent. There's lots of
Right,
assets and money, but
right.
there's really not enough to go around at all. The goal of the job of someone on council, so a councillor like I am, is to use what limited resources you have and decide how you're going to direct that to various aspects. And our local government area has got about 51 lines of business. which is, if you look at any business, the commercial world, you never see a business with
Mm.
51 lines of business.
Yeah,
It's
it's a lot.
crazy. But we do everything from childcare to libraries to ocean pools to roads to stormwater. It's just this vast array of things that council does. And so I'd been volunteering for some of the independent politicians in our region, just putting up corflutes and stuff. And somebody said, "Why don't you stand for council? You won't get in. You'll be a number two on the ballot." And I got in. So I think my first meeting with the CEO was congratulations, councillor, before it had even been announced. And I was all a little bit, this is a bit weird. And he said, financial sustainability. In order to maintain our assets, we need to look to a rate increase. And that was my very first meeting. So I went in all excited, and I came out and I went, "Oh God, the community's going to hate this. It's going to be a nightmare." And it was a nightmare. It was loud and vocal, and people were abusing us in the streets and all sorts. But we went through the proper process. We did what we needed to do. We understood what the community wanted. We understood what the organization needed. We understood what the Auditor General said. We got involved in this independent regulatory tribunal called IPART, built a proposal to them. They came back and gave us some of that. And now we're rolling that out and we're fixing potholes and sorting out the roads, and a whole bunch of cool things is going on. But that was fascinating to see how I'm used to running businesses, and when I run
Mm.
businesses, they're not a democracy at all. Right? I say we'll go in this direction, and that's the direction we go in.
That's the way
Um,
we go, yes.
yeah, politics doesn't work like that. So we've got 15 councillors on our
Yeah,
council, and to get anything through, you have to have 8 votes or more. So every item you're
okay.
working, who's going to be voting where. You're doing a lot of time working with the other councillors to understand where their heads are at, finding compromises, doing amendments, and then you've got this whole rules of debate thing you do in the chamber, which is a whole new thing to learn, because it's how you debate items is really structured, and there's lots of rules around it, and there's a 80-page code of meeting practice that you need to know in order to even engage in debate. So there's lots and lots to it, but it's fascinating and exciting and interesting. And in council, being the form of government that's closest to the people, one of your goals, and not just doing what's in the public good, but you need to think intergenerationally. So when you're making decisions, you need to think, how is this going to land in 40 or 50 years' time? And how's it going to affect my children's children? And being able to make a difference like that, even in small ways like parks and playing fields and toilet blocks, is actually really quite humbling and awe-inspiring, right?
It's a thankless task, mate, and it's a testament to your character and commitment to your local community. Because, to your point, you have to make some tough decisions, and that's fraught with the danger. And I know you've gone through some interesting scenarios. We won't dive into too much as a result of that. But maybe there's going to be a return on this investment. I'm envisioning this prominent Bogart Park or something like that.
Yeah,
That might be.
we've actually just voted against naming anything after politicians, because I
Okay,
think that
good.
I think that sucks. So that went through last year. One of the fascinating, I think my most fascinating hit you in the face moment is when we were doing the votes around the special rate variation. I walked into Town Hall Station, and when you come up for those of you who aren't in Sydney, for those of you who are, you'll know this. You come up the stairs into the QVB, and on the
Mm.
right is a news agency. And that news agency always has like a little poster, in the Telegraph today is this article or that article. And I came up the stairs, and there's my face staring back at me with 8 other
Wow.
councillors that voted for the rate rise, and it said the hateful eight. And
Wow.
so I had to go and buy a copy of that newspaper. That was awesome.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, don't give up your day job, mate. If that's what we're feeling. So let's get on to a little bit of the IT stuff, if I
Yep,
can speak
sure.
so plainly. I want to start a little bit around agentic AI. About 6 months ago, I was attending all of the industry events, right? There's Pipeline, there's Edge, there's Evolve, there's S&B IT. There's a whole bunch. I didn't get to all of them, but there's a lot of events on it. And I often seen people talking about their excitement of the work they're doing around agentic AI. And I bumped into a whole bunch of other people who say that bullshit doesn't exist in real life. What is the truth? To mystify agentic AI? Well, maybe what is it, firstly, and then what is the reality?
So I probably need to go back a little bit to pull this all together for people to get an idea of what it is. Agentic AI itself is what we call an emergent behavior. It's when we created, well, I didn't, but we did it as an industry, so I'll use the royal we. We created a mathematical technique called the generative pre-trained transformer. That's what GPT is in ChatGPT, and that's a model where you can create um, text and natural language prediction, and bigger than that, by feeding a model vast amounts of natural language, and that was what created GPT-1, GPT-2 were these APIs that you as developers could go use, and they'd start to actually talk back to you, which was fascinating. And obviously, a couple of years ago now, ChatGPT shipped. And what ChatGPT wasn't anything exciting except it was a UI wrapper around that API that had already been around for a couple of years. And so OpenAI shipped that because it changed almost overnight the human computer interface. Just like the iPhone changed how we interface with mobile devices, ChatGPT gave us this future where you didn't have to be a coder, or you didn't have to be technical, or you could be human, converse with this thing, and it would give you semi-useful information back. So there we go. We've got these pre-trained transformers. We've got ChatGPT. I can type text and it comes back to us. And one of the first complaints from the user base was that it had this cutoff. I mean, if you remember back, everyone was talking about what's the cutoff date for knowledge in the model. Nobody talks about that anymore. And it's not because those things aren't still there. They absolutely are. But OpenAI and a bunch of others went, well, we really need these models to be able to do more than just talk text back to us. So we're going to give them the ability to use what they call tools. And a tool isn't anything except the model being able to say back to the application running it, hey, I'd like you to call this tool with this data for me. So, for example, the example they always use is you can set this up, you can go to ChatGPT and you go, what's the weather in Sydney? And it's now able to say back to the application running it, hey, I need you to reach out to an API with this data and get the response. Give me that response and I'll respond to the user in plain text. Tool calling, it's called. So that started, and they went, you know what we'll do? We'll now give it the ability to search the web through tool calling. So suddenly you don't have to worry about where its data cutoff is, because if it doesn't know something, it'll go and look on the web and find it out, like we all do. So you've got that. So that's some emergent behavior. And then somebody, I think in the Ukraine, worked out that you could say to these models, work step by step, and they gave you a better response. I think you remember all that stuff about prompt engineering was all of this. And then somebody else went, that's really cool. But imagine if we could get the model to come up with a plan and then ask itself to do the plan and then ask itself to do step one and put it in this kind of loop to say only stop when you're finished. So agentic AI is just ChatGPT, if you will, with tool calling, with the ability to run in a loop and continually talk to itself till it thinks the job's done. That's agentic in a nutshell. Does that make sense? So it yep. Yeah, so an agent really is a bunch of software, a bit of software that can interface with you and can run that agentic model. And there's a few. So very early on, their agentic models came out. There was a bunch of open source projects, and I used some of them. They were kind of cool. They'd use your token allowance in about an hour. But people like Microsoft are now shipping APIs around that. Microsoft's is something called semantic kernel. And semantic kernel allows you to code up an agent, give it skills and tools, and then you can say to the agent, go do something. Let me give you an example to kind of land this, if I can. So um, if I look at something I've been working on, so I'm working on a piece of software, and this piece of software can do things. It can reach out to APIs, it can talk to the web, it can show something to the user, it can import and export data. I can give semantic kernel access to this API of my application, teach it what everything means in English, and then I can get it to create things. So I can go into this and say, use this application to create a CRM for me or create an ERP. And it will go off and build the whole application because I've given it knowledge and tools on my app platform that I built, which is really wacky. So my corollary from that was, if you think about people, you think about a knowledge worker, what is it you do? Well, you've got some context, you kind of know what your job is. If you're really effective, you've got a to-do list you run off every day. And every morning you should double check what your job is, read and respond to all your emails, and read your to-do lists and work through it. And you either assign that to people or you do it yourself. That's it. So I was then thinking, and I'm building this at the moment, can I build agents which actually operate real roles in my business? So I've got software developers as agents. Everybody knows how to do that. But can I have a marketing team, a design team, a sales team, a customer facing team? And so that's what agents allow you to do. It allows you to, rather than have this generic chatbot, allows you to focus something and give it tools. It can read and write email in Office 365. It can update my to-do list. It can work with Planner. It can read the org chart. That's all possible now. And that's where it gets really exciting, is we can let these things effectively start to run autonomously. And Brad's hopped off, but I know what he's getting at, so I'll keep talking. So Brad's question was, um, really, why do we need separate agents? Why can't we just have one agent which does everything? And the reason is, it's a technical limitation of the models. The models allow you to have something called a context window, which is how much text or imagery can you have in their memory at any one time. And the big models now can do about 1 million tokens. Assume a token's a word just for this conversation. So they can have about 1 million words in there. So it's really important when you're building agents. If you try and build a generic one, the context gets too large. And so if you have specific agents, you can have a smaller level of context there. So you don't have this huge context window, you have a smaller context window, and you can actually have specific agents which do certain things. So that makes it kind of neat. That kind of puts us in an environment where we have agents which we specifically teach to do things. We give specific tools to. It means we can manage and control them. It means we don't have to think about building one big generic agent, which probably wouldn't work and the quality would suffer and all sorts of things like that. So that's the theory of agents. But I think while I wait for Brad to come back, I think we should kind of talk about how do we use this stuff. So I'll talk about how I use it in my business. So used to, in most of my businesses for the last decade, I've run software development teams, and that consists of software developers and testers, and project managers and user experience designers. And there's a whole raft of different roles and skills that go together to build software products. Now, these skills and these people are kind of work together in a structured pattern. And you can and Brad's back. Here he comes. Hello, Brad. Welcome back.
Improved a lot. I had to close the browser and come back. Now, I could hear your audio fine before, Nick, just so you know.
Excellent.
Your
Cool.
audio was fantastic, but the video was buffering, and then there was a delay between my questions. And so, thank you, mate. Last question I asked you, and Lyndon, thanks, you jumped in the chat window and shared his perspective. I'm like, if agents are so great, why do you need 14 of them? Why can't you just create a super
Yeah.
agent?
And so that's a really good question. And my answer to that, and I'll give you the summary because I did actually just spend a little while answering that. My answer to that was that there's this thing called a context window. So you
Mhm.
can only have so much text in the context of a large language model at any time. It's about 1 million words in the modern models. if you try and get your agent to do too many things, it can't keep hold of all the context. It just is, there's a technical limitation. So we tend to keep them pretty specific. But if you look at roles, let's look at my software development roles. You have developers, testers, user experience designers, project managers. People who are highly skilled also have specific roles because they can get really honed in and good at that. And the same thing applies to agents. So you want to build a number of specific ones. They don't, apart from a bit of compute, they don't cost you any more to have one or the others. I just think, get better results with more focused agents.
It's interesting at the start of that, as well, you mentioned about, web developers as some of those 14 agents been really building I'm not technical developer at all, so, I've for those of you who know my history, I've run channel businesses for Microsoft for the most part and now Channel Guru. I'm getting pretty good at using ChatGPT to build code for apps, and really it's so I can articulate to my developer what I want them to build. And the senior developer we have who does the more complex work, it's number of times he's been quite surprised on how good the code is. And I don't know, I just send him a bunch of stuff, right? But I'm sitting there working with the AI for a few hours to spit out something that's mock up, it's functional, and it's actually saving me a lot of time, effort. I can articulate what I want to build, and I'd probably save me money at the same time. So it's interesting that those tools are becoming meaningful even for novices like me. What problems can agentic AI not solve? What are the things it's not good for today? What are some of the myths potentially about agentic AI?
There's lots of myths about agentic AI,
Okay.
right? Um, let me use. I'm going to use a little analogy because, like, God, the media likes to make a story out of stuff, don't they? I suppose that's their job. But there's, yeah, everything. I see posts the whole time. This is the end of coding. Well, it's not the end of coding at all, but it's the end of apologies for my French, but it's the end of the shitty bit of coding, if you will. Now, sitting there and typing out syntax and remembering where to put your semicolons and making sure you get your brackets in the right place and making sure you're using the right libraries. It's probably the end of that, but it's not the end of architecting your solutions properly and making them perform, and making them secure and making them enterprise scale and all of those things. It's not the end of that at all. And so, lots of people go, oh, I have it, I get it all the time. Oh, I built an app in Cursor or Base 44 or this or that or the other. But when I roll it out to 30 people, it performs like hell. Or I'm really worried about security, or how do I do authentication? And so there's all sorts of things in IT where agents aren't going to solve it, but where it will solve it, and where it works really well is in our world. We don't. You can imagine. I don't walk into Chat GPT and say, "Hey, build me this enterprise software for a customer." We do very big specification documents, and our bots are actually in a bit of a walled garden. Every time they write some code, they have to build unit tests around it. They have to propose changes. That gets reviewed by a different AI. That gets reviewed by a human. That's got to match the spec. That gets checked into our source control system. That gets compiled and built and tested. And then when you go and change something else, because we've now written all these tests, you don't get what we call regressions. And what you'll find if you use ChatGPT a lot is you go, oh, can you just change that little thing over here? And that big thing over there will break. And so it's actually building the structure. So my job as an architect and dev lead hasn't actually changed very much. I'm still doing the same stuff I was doing. I'm reviewing PRs, I'm reviewing specs, I'm making sure we're doing the right things, I'm choosing the order we do things. The day-to-day typing in the letters and numbers and making the code work, that's being done by an agent. But then that's not the smart bit about writing code. And the other thing, which is where you are, is getting what's in somebody's head into a piece of software is not a one-to-one thing, right? You need this ability to to translate the ideas in someone's head into some technology that works. There's lots of scope for that. That human, because humans are asking us to build software to solve problems they have in their world. They don't know what's possible. They don't know what you can do. But here we can iterate really fast. We can show them examples. They can play with it. Oh no, could we change that? And because I've got agents there, we can. And we can be really agile. And that makes it really exciting. So a lot of the grunt work's gone away. So would I now hire, if I'm growing my team, would I hire somebody who wanted to be a software developer, or would I hire somebody who wanted to be a software project manager? It's more the project management and architects and running the team than actually doing that kind of work.
It's one of the observations you just made was saying that when you have AI and use ChatGPT as the example, create a high fidelity app or want to create kind of an app that's somewhat workable as a starting point. You're absolutely right. That's my exact experience. What you said was if you go back and then ask it to edit that app, it falls over every time. And it's exactly and I've created tens of these things, and if I want to change something, have to go back to the starting block and do it again because I just can't get it to change the code and make that small tweak without breaking the whole bloody thing. Trust me, I've tried for hours and hours, and it's gone back and said, "Okay, let's start from scratch," and in a new chat because it will kind of have all that memory. So, just as if you're thinking about leaders that exist in the business, so tech leaders listening to today's conversation, they want to start some way responsibly looking at agentic AI. Where do they start?
Um, some really good. Let me think. If you want to talk about agentic AI around software development, which is where we're most mature,
Mm,
around agentic AI. It's get on the web and pick up a tutorial. As Lyndon's talking about Copilot, I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you want to look at a tutorial on how to use something like Claude Code or ChatGPT Codex and run through that. In fact, I've just released a book on how to build software that way and have a play with it and get it to build something. That's kind of a cool way to go. If you're more visual, something like Base 44 is really cool to build those sorts of things. So there's a lot of discussion around that. Now I will talk about Copilot.
yeah,
Is a really it's a funny one. Building agents with Copilot. Pilot's idea of agents are AI's idea that they call GPTs. Agents are a lot more than a set of skills and tools and prompts. Agents are about loops, iteration, positive and negative feedback. So if I was going to commercialize an agent solution today on the Microsoft stack, use C sharp and I code it using semantic kernel. You can get the most control, you can build the most thing. Actually, I'm building something like that at the moment. Watch this space. It's going to be awesome. But we're not using things like Copilot Studio or the agent technology because it just doesn't do it for me. You'll always find because Microsoft are riding on the coattails of what OpenAI do, OpenAI are going to be 3 to 6 months ahead of what ships in the box for customers in Copilot, and for good reason. But I like to be very bleeding edge in this stuff, which is why I'm going to talk a lot about the bleeding edge. So you'll see people will talk a lot about application development. They'll talk about Claude. Claude is great at building UI. It's way better than ChatGPT, by the way. It
yeah,
builds beautiful UIs
agreed.
as long as you like purple. You have to tell it a lot not to use purple, but that's probably a Tailwind thing. Um, but ChatGPT is way better at building back end. Copilot's good, getting better at working with documents, but I still find, yeah, the other agentic models are just a little bit ahead for me at the moment. It's just where I am. Oh, we're in a safe space. You're going to get my broad opinion, right? But I would say if you're coding something commercially that you want to run agents, the best framework at the moment is Microsoft Semantic Kernel. It's well thought out, it's well structured, it's supported. Some of the open source ones are a bit fun and they go wrong a lot. So I've used it and I think it's great.
Yeah, it's interesting. We mentioned Claude. I've been dabbling in a little bit of Claude, and I was just trying to replicate pages that my current developers is doing, just really as a hobby, to be honest, to try it, and I got pretty close. It was functional. I could click on all the buttons. The video sections worked. It was probably 9/10 there. And I'm very much a novice in this space. It is interesting. I do agree that creating what I would call basic web pages, a little bit of video and section functionality, it's quite easy on Claude.
It is, and I find, like, even building big commercial products, when somebody used to come to me and say, "Can you build me an MVP for my complex product that does what Facebook does?" That's normally the ask I get. I look at people and let my glasses down and get really. But anyway, we used to quote for something commercially viable about $500,000. Right, that was your starting point. I think you're probably finding now, Brad, with your platform, it's going to be coming up to about $500,000, if not more. That's what it costs to build software. In the agentic world, it's costing about 100 human hours now. And there's a lot of media going, but the poor developers will have nothing to do. But then when you look at somewhere like freelancer.com, you chat to Matt Barry, there's a million outstanding projects on that platform that are not
Wow.
currently resourced. And that's one of them. Fiverr has a whole bunch of others. Freelancer.com, there's a whole bunch of demand out there that isn't being fulfilled. We could multiply our capability by the amount we're about to multiply it by, and there'd still be nascent demand there that wouldn't be being fulfilled. So I don't think people need to worry about there not being jobs. The trick is to learn how to agent wrangle and become an agent cowboy. Not, I
Mm.
don't mean cowboy in the bad way, but the good way. Wrestle and understand this technology and be able to use it to your own advantage. And that will come out of the tech world, and it will start affecting all sorts of other areas of business as it matures.
The Thank you. It's awesome insight. Yeah, you do hear these motherhood statements often around this is dead or that's going to die or what is going to be the pace of disruption with AI is a very common one. I don't watch much TV, but I was watching something on the weekend. Forget what it was. It was like, yeah, everyone's going to be unemployed, and 90% of people will be unemployed in a couple of years. I'm like, yeah, they feel like very I don't know, perhaps at times uninformed statements. So let's talk about a great little conversation, Nick, that took place on LinkedIn the other day. I was having a conversation in Channel Guru Live with Robert Crane a couple of weeks ago, and I posted some of that content onto LinkedIn, and there was a statement made around just a perspective shared that a lot of the work that an MSP or TSP does today inside their organization for the customers will be automated. And the modern day MSP needs to transform over time to think about how they do a level of coding, how they better understand AI tools or move into advisory and security. Just want to maybe get your perspective on this from an MSP perspective. Do you think what's your perspective on what they do today and how much of that may be automated in the not too distant future?
I think there's a couple of things there, and it kind of depends what you want your business to look at. And there's what 7,500 Microsoft partners in Australia,
Yep,
something around that
about that.
number.
Yep.
80% of the Australian economy is what we call small and medium businesses. And so the corollary from that is most of the MSPs are looking after small and medium businesses. So you'd think if you put more and more automation into your business, you could scale to deliver services to more and more customers. And that might be true, but that might not be what the customer wants. I think there's got to be a balance here. There doesn't seem to be a significant downward pressure on pricing at the moment. There's not a significant change. We've made the move from 30 grand servers every 3 years in the SMB space to monthly value-based pricing. Actually, we did that quicker than the accountants did it. There's opportunities in automation, but there's also risk in automation as well. What I see happening in a lot of MSPs is you've got one guy in the corner who's the automation guy. He builds all the automation, the thing's all singing, all dancing, poorly documented. It's not very well maintained because you're all out busy doing customer stuff. And before you know where you are, he leaves and you're back to doing things manually or using your standard RMM and PSA tools. The automation will come when guys like Kaseya and Ninja One and those guys put more automation into their products. And I think that will be the difference. I don't think in most MSPs you should be handcrafting automation. Now, not saying it's not possible, it is. You can build agents today that will answer 80% of your incoming support calls. You can build agents today that are able to log into customers' Microsoft 365 environment and do configuration and change things. You've got agents today that can do RMAs, that can plan networks, that can do all sorts of things. All of that's there, but it's there in the lab. It's not there in something I, as an MSP, can buy and implement, and it's robust and keeps working. Just like everything, when we first started doing cloud, we went, this is the end of the data center owned by companies. In a way it was, but they've all co-located. We're all hybrid. It hasn't got 100% cloud. When we talked about, yeah, AI doing software or running automation or things like Power Automate or those tools, UiPath, automating business processes. Well, they've automated some, but they certainly haven't automated all of them yet. I think there are opportunities for automation, but I think most organizations will wait till the vendor ships it and use what comes out of their box. Is the cost of building and maintaining and running that, I think, will trip people up. It's just my view, and I'll have a different view. And I think the thing we've got to be really careful of, and this is something the accounting firms tripped over. And I was part of this. I was working heavily with Chartered Accountants ANZ on helping accountants move away from doing compliance, tax, and that stuff to doing advisory work, to find out that we've got more accountants doing compliance now than we had 10
Mm,
years ago,
mm.
right? Making more money out of it because it's
Yep.
actually what customers want. Only a few want the advisory, and maybe most SMB customers out there want people to keep their Office 365 ad
Mm,
up, do use additions changes, fix laptops when they don't work, make sure the network works, and run a help desk. And maybe they don't want advisory in that space because they're like a manufacturer or they're this and that, and they don't see IT as a strategic asset, and it isn't for them. Maybe that's what's going on. So I'd be careful not to rush at advisory as being the solution to everything. That's a different type of business. I think you can make really good money as a well-run MSP with the tools available now and be competitive without having to do any of the advanced automation stuff or make your stuff quicker or better. And then finally, maybe there's customers out there who actually want the white glove human experience. Maybe the reason accountants thrive in the suburbs, the unique selling proposition isn't how quickly they do your tax or their price. It's the fact they're close and you can go see them and they make you a cup of tea and talk about stuff. I think the same's probably true in the MSP land. Now, I've been proven wrong before. I could be wrong now, but I love to give kind of my view on these things.
Well, the good news is we've recorded it, so we've got the evidence time stamped, and so we could, if the moment comes to prove you wrong, we'll make sure we do it. So that's that. Will there be industries? Will there be verticals that will be disrupted by automation? Do you think in the short to medium term?
There already are. And manufacturing's an industry which has been disrupted by automation since Henry Ford created the
Yeah.
first
Okay.
production line. Textiles has been disruptive since the first spinning, weaving presses and steam engines were created. Every industry's getting disruptive. Automotive's being disruptive. We've got self-driving cars. We've got Waymo in the US. We've got autopilot on Teslas. Everything's going to be
Mm.
disrupted. Everything's going to change. We're all going to still keep working 40 hours. We're all going to struggle to make ends meet. I don't think those things will change. One thing that's going to be disrupted, I think, quite quickly is the military. And you can see that already. If you look at the stuff that's going on in the Ukraine, a lot of that's drone related now,
Mm.
whereas when that started, there's very little of that. So will we eventually see wars which are drones fighting drones and the rest of us sitting back with an Xbox controller? I don't know.
As you were saying, I think that could be quite fun. We'll just have a drone off. Let's just do it somewhere where it's not going to disrupt everyone. Be clear, we won't use chemicals and nuclear weapons. And if we get to participate, right, you get to buy your own drone and get into the fun, pick battles, some modern day board game.
Yeah,
Should
maybe
be,
not.
we, we shouldn't be so flippant. And so if you're a partner today, you're a tech partner today, and you've got a customer who's coming to you and saying to you, hey, I want to drive automation. I want to get ahead of my particular industry. It's probably a very vague question to ask. where do they start? Do they come and speak to someone like you, or is it training to do?
I think
Like,
it's isn't it fascinating, because actually this is the question customers of MSPs have been asking them since before MSPs was coined, when we are, solution providers
mm,
and those sorts of things. Customers come to technologists to provide devices and technology which will make their business run faster. And that's why we use this stuff. It has an effect. We're not handwriting ledgers anymore. We're not handwriting invoices. Yeah, it's being done by systems. It's being done quicker and better. And so I think, yeah, the industry's been really good at fulfilling that need. But the industry's been really good at upskilling itself, understanding the technology that needs, and delivering it to the end user base. We did that when we moved from, when Small Business Server died, and we moved into that mess before cloud. Then we moved to cloud. If you're going to think about moving up a stack, it's moving into the other business apps, right? So if you're sitting there just doing Office 365, desktop, laptop support, networking, power, that's fine. But maybe you want to think of, do I start supporting a Zero or a small CRM or a ERP product in my bigger customers, and have a look at what verticals you focus on and look at where you can get upskilled. And I remember in the first ever solution provider I worked for back in the beginning of time, when we backed up onto floppy disk, I remember those days, we used to support and manage a hotel system called IGS Hotel, and it was rolled out to 40, 50 hotels near where we were, and we provided IT services and support for that software there. And we got our team trained in it, and they could do, Windows and all the standard stuff, and they looked after this hotel software. And that's, I think, how you nail that one. You go, okay, let's pick some things we can be good at and go do it. I wouldn't recommend going, we can build anything you want in Power Automate and Power Apps and Logic Apps, or AI Studio and Azure, unless you've really thought through the life cycle of those solutions. Unless you've really, and it's fine being able to build something for someone which works today, but software is a journey, not a destination. And you're now in the business of writing commercial software for customers. How are you going to support it? How are you going to monetize it? How are you going to maintain it? What happens when these things change? And Power Apps and Power Automate and Logic Apps upgrade their platform on a pretty regular basis. And sometimes things you wrote then will break now. What's your plan for that? So if you're going to do that, you need to think it through. If you're supporting someone else's software, well, that's a little bit easier, because that's their problem that you help with, and maybe opportunity for you.
mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think in part that's what some of what Robert Crane was talking about. The Power Apps and Power Automate is a good place to step into, and um, it's really insightful. And I think one of the things we will probably need to challenge is most MSPs out there have been spending years avoiding what they would call vendor sprawl, trying to have consistent environments across their customers, and so they've actually built a business on, and perhaps a culture and a mindset around not to bring in new technologies. And I know, working in the vendor and disty space for a couple of decades, we've been trying to solve a partner to partner to say, actually, maybe you don't have the capacity to build Power App skills or ERP skills or CRM skills, but is there a way that we can create confidence in building that relationship? So I think that's going to be an interesting change, right? If I do get a level of automation in my existing vendor stack, does it create an environment where I can extend, and will I be open to doing that to new technologies?
I'd be really keen. I think what you should do when you think about anything like this is, rather going, I see lots of people go, oh, we're going to do Dynamics, or we're going to do name big product X over here. What they haven't done is gone out to their customer base and say, right, what is it you use above and beyond what we do? Um, what would be valuable for us to offer to you, and what do you think we're not offering today that we should offer in the future? And actually go ask your customers. This is one of the things we do in the software game, is we build what's called the minimum viable product. We take it as quickly as we can to customers, who will invariably tell you you're wrong.
Mm,
All your ideas are wrong, you should do something else. So I think sitting with your customers and having that conversation of what's our service portfolio, boiling that down into what the customers want, A, gives you an easier way to implement it because they'll theoretically pay for it to get you started. And B, it means you can move forward in that space. And yeah, software vendors are pretty cool. Cloud makes it a lot easier than it used to be. But software vendors like to look after partners, and yes, don't necessarily do vendor sprawl, but don't think you can build a full scale CRM or ERP using Power Apps and
Mm,
Power Automate.
yeah.
That would be mad. That would madness would ensue.
Yeah, that's awesome insight, mate. And so we were talking earlier about, oh, sorry, there was a LinkedIn post I think you did. You had these fantastic pencil drawings, and you were talking about you're 100 hours in into deep focus and building
Yep.
some automation or something. Probably more of a bit of a personal question. In your type of competence that you bring, it's a great deal of focus and concentration to be able to, complete monolithic tasks. How do you focus as a human being when you're going through some of those development cycles?
Well, that's a really cool question. It depends where I am in the cycle. So I have a fairly structured day in that I like to get all my coding or development work or review work done by about lunchtime.
Okay.
Um, so I like to get up super early, and I think best in the mornings, and just came through that. When I've got lots going on, I'll revert back to a to-do list, but I don't maintain a continuous one. Yeah. So normally all my projects run very big to-do lists. We run issues and milestones and all of that. So I know where all my projects are. That's easy. But sometimes when I'm building proposals and got to get back to customers and it gets a bit hairy, I'll do a to-do list. The other thing that happens to me is my event horizon changes. And by what I mean by that is the busier I get, the less far I can plan into the future, to the point where sometimes I've had a 3-4 hour event horizon. Like, oh, can we do something tomorrow? I've got no idea. I need to focus on this. It's a personal thing I have. So, but normally I extend out. I know what's going on for most of the week. I have that really focused session in the morning, and then afternoons I tend to chill and do meetings with customers and write proposals and do that sort of stuff. But mornings are my hardcore, most powerful time to just block everybody out, stick on the noise cancelers, stick on some AR glasses if I'm really in that mood, and laser light focus to the point where, yeah, I can be sitting at home, someone can tap me on the shoulder and I'll go, whoa, and lose everything I've got in my head. But having a bunch of bots means that's quite different because I can be running 10 parallel projects and have the team off doing tasks, and they're coming back to me at points. So I've got this notification engine which says we finished this task over here. So when I'm finished that, I can come back and look at that. I also take a lot of use of the focus buttons on Windows and block everything out for little periods. That's quite useful. That in your clock, you can say, I want to focus for like 90 minutes, and it blocks everything out. All your notifications go away. 90 minutes, you
Does
can come
it?
back later.
Focus
Yeah.
function on Windows? I've never heard of it.
Yeah, so if you just click on your time and date down the bottom right,
Mm.
it will pop up your notifications.
Right, I
Down the
got
bottom, you've
focus
got a
then.
little button that says focus.
Yes, right.
That's
I've
that's
never
it's
noticed
really
it.
easy. I told
You
Brad
can see
Clark
how
something
focused
about
I am.
Windows.
I dare not click it because I don't want to cut you off. That's interesting. So I pick a time that I'm focused for. Is that how it
Yep,
works? Okay, cool.
yep.
I will play with it this afternoon. Might be a middle age thing, I'm the same. As I get older, my ability to super concentrate is for extended periods of time. I find it a little bit harder. Whilst you build skills, so my skills are probably higher, and it's probably a bit of a balance. But very
Yeah, I
similar,
think
my
I think
friend. That
that
early morning is where I can focus.
that length of hyperfocus as you get older
Yeah.
does get shorter. Gone are the days where I can bang a
Mm.
12-hour solid. Now I'm about an hour, and then I need to get up and have a cup of tea or something. But yeah, I've got lots of experience to make me more effective. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, I agree in those micro spurts. And so I got two tricks. I will always break. I'll do half an hour really hard and only break for 1 or 2 minutes. And I'll do one or two things. Quickly play with my youngest daughter who is not in school yet, so she's home a lot. Or I'll go out and walk the garden, pull out a couple of weeds, get into nature, get a bit of vitamin D. It always helps. So if concentrating in the morning is one of your superpowers, if I could say, what's something that you struggle with?
Oh, goodness. Saying no is something I've always struggled with. That's why I do all the things I do. I like the Richard Branson approach to opportunity. Say yes and then work out how you're going to do it later. That's caught me out less times than it's created cool things, but it has caught me out. I've got caught just taking on too much on occasions, and sometimes I have to go do a cull. So saying no is one of my things. The other thing is it used to be believing what the vendor told me. I've been caught on that a number of times. Actually going, oh, Microsoft say this does this, and this, and can't believe it doesn't. Well, yeah, I've worked on products where I didn't. So that's a little bit. And I'm very optimistic, and so I have to temper that when talking to customers, that my optimism isn't perceived as confidence in delivery. I like to go into things glass half full. I like to have a positive mental attitude about things, and I need to be careful that doesn't set wrong expectations. Those are some of my biggest weaknesses, and sometimes thinking I'm smarter than other people is a weakness as well. But that's just, I've got to stop that too, because there's a lot of really smart people out there.
Yeah, I'm surprised after 20 years at Microsoft, when you stop drinking the Kool-Aid, and it takes a little while for it to simmer off for you, the realities of what they say versus the real world scenario does surprise you a little bit. So I'm currently have on my second screen here, Nick, Amazon page up. And I'll just read you some titles of what I can see in front of me. From I Did Impact, ChatGPT for Executives, the MSP V Next, AI Development Software Handbook. You got many books
Got a
available
few.
on
Yeah,
Amazon. What's the latest? And can you tell us a little bit about them?
I'll tell you a story about them actually, because they're a story and they're really funny. So I was the first chair for CompTIA in Asia Pacific.
Oh, were
CompTIA
you?
Australia, New Zealand. Yeah, I was founder chair. And so I know those guys really well. And when ChatGPT first launched, they asked me to go and give a talk at one of their events. And I went, "Oh, I'll come and give a talk." And I hate going empty-handed. And so I'm in the shower one Thursday morning, and I thought, I know, I'm going to write a book. So I sat down in front of
Of
ChatGPT
course.
and said, "Hey, I'm giving a talk on that stuff. I want to write a book. Can you give me some ideas?" And one I came up with was ChatGPT for Executives. And I went, "That's cracking." I said, "Can you give me a table of contents?" And it did. And I did some tweaking. And I said, "Cool, can you write chapter one?" Anyway, this is a Thursday morning. And as I said, I start fairly early. But by lunchtime, I had a pretty good manuscript. So I logged into Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing and I uploaded my manuscript and I created a cover, and I published the Kindle book. While that was in review, it popped up and said, "You should really do a paperback." I went, "I should really do a paperback." So I went through the other steps to create the paperback. And by that afternoon, my paperback and Kindle book had been approved. So I ordered some because the next week I was going to give this presentation. And here's the magic. The magic. No, it's not ChatGPT writing a book. That's boring. The magic is, on Sunday, a delivery driver appeared with 20 of my books that hadn't existed before that Thursday morning and were fully printed ISBN physical copies of books that I was able to take to a presentation next week and give out. That was just cool, right?
Wow.
That whole, how do you make that whole logistics thing happen? I thought was awesome. And then I realized there's a couple of things that go on with business books. First of all, nobody buys them. Uh, Business books don't sell lots of
Good.
copies.
Note to
So
self.
you only need to sell 20 or 30 copies and you're a bestseller for a little bit. So I was number one best-selling business book in Australia for a couple of weeks. That was hilarious. I'm now down to 49 thousandths or something. I'm not advertising them. But the other thing is, people don't read them. So a little bit after that, I was at an event and somebody came up, "Oh, you're Nick Bojard." I said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "I've got your book." And she pulled out of her bag my book, ChatGPT for Executives. I
What?
said, "That's cool. What was your favorite bit?" She says, "Well, I haven't read it yet." And I can see what people read on the Kindle edition that they buy,
Oh,
and
interesting.
it's very little. Now people read a little bit of these books, and then we'll go and do something else and something else. So there's bookshelves of business books out there that A, don't sell very much, and B, haven't been read very much. But then you can say in a presentation, "Well, I wrote a book on that," so that's kind of cool. So what I do now is, instead of shipping white papers, and instead of shipping blog posts, if I got something useful to say, like here's how we use agents to develop software, I'll go write a book on it and publish it through Amazon. Because then I've got a customer who doesn't know, I can send them a copy of the book. It's something I can refer back to. I do make a little bit of money out of it, but it's a way of building a little bit of credibility. How do you do that? I wrote a book on it. So my two latest ones this year is I took our agentic software development process and we wrote with ChatGPT. I wrote a book on it. How do I do it? And then I realized that was a bit too technical. So I then wrote a book which teaches you what all the technical bits are and how they work. So there's a series coming. So it will be, it'll be the standard. Then we're going to be writing. This is writing C# and Blazor. We're going to do some around Python. We'll do some around some of the other frameworks and languages. So we'll write some guides on how to agentically build that stuff.
You also wrote a book, I see, with Lauren Keeves. Lauren had built our website.
Yeah, so Lauren,
Um,
I met Lauren when she first moved to Australia. Was working for Chartered Accountants ANZ, and she actually worked for my company for a little bit as our
oh wow,
marketing person. She's awesome. She's very cool.
she's amazing. She's been wonderful to work with. Do me marketing for those who don't know Lauren's business. If you want high quality marketing, great place to start. They built our website actually. Firstly, I just before we wrap up, just want to thank Lyndon for hanging in there for the entire conversation. And putting up with Riverside crashing halfway through. Thank you. That's awesome, mate. If you want to ask any further questions, feel free to jump in. But Nick, I always learn a lot talking to you. You're a steward of the channel, and I care like you deeply about supporting the channel in a meaningful way. Any upgrade the internet? I have fiber to the premise. I can't get any further upgrade. I'm 700 megs down or 700 megabits down. It's as fast as it gets.
I've got a bi-directional gig as well.
It's like, how can this happen? What's going on? But I will. Yeah, I'll go have a conversation with the boss and see if she can upgrade me further. I don't know if it's possible. So, Nick, any closing thoughts, mate? What any thoughts you want to share in closing?
Yeah, I've been involved in the channel for years and years and years, either encouraging people to do cloud or from a CompTIA perspective or presenting at conferences and SMBIT Pro events. And I think in the main, the channel gets a bit of a bad rap. I think what the channel needs to think about is in Australia, one of the key drivers of our economy is our SMB sector. And the organization that keeps our SMB sector working and functional and delivering that great outcome for the Australian economy is the channel. The IT channel actually has an incredibly important place to play in the Australian economy, and I don't think that's realised enough. I don't think it's realised enough at government level. I don't think it's realised enough in industry itself. People will still talk about the IT guy, but won't actually realise the benefits that this industry has brought over the last 50 years to our economy and the things it's going to do in the next 50. So I think one of the things one of my takeaways is, it's hard there in the trenches running an MSP. It's hard delivering to customers who only go to you when things are failing. But what you do is so vitally important to the national interests, and good on you.
That's awesome, mate. Well, thank you. And just a reminder to yourself, Lyndon, Nick, and anyone listening to this recording, all this content is available for free. We now have a free version of Channel Guru, and all the recordings, the full recordings, are available there. And we will keep aiming to host interesting conversations like this at least once a week. But thank you, Lyndon, for joining. And thanks, Nick. That was a wonderful insights.
Pleasure. Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me, Brad.
Thanks, mate. I'll just stop the recording there.